I got two of them here, so you can handle that.
I can't read it, too small.
You can read it, you just can't see.
Yeah,
I got that oversized one.
folks, Wednesday night, Walnut Grove
Creek.
Creek. Where am I? Well, same thing, Grove and the Creek. It's a cutout. Where's the water to run?
I mean, the creek's right over there.
Oh, okay. Anyway, folks, Wednesday night Bible study at Walnut Creek. We're in Proverbs 13. Grab your Bibles, sit down, enjoy, and welcome you newcomers and welcome you ones over the sea or the pond.
Our faithful followers.
Yes, yes.
Oh,
We'll have to watch out for Doug tonight. He's got 2 or 3 Bibles all lined up in a row there.
Yeah.
you guys should see me whenever I'm here by myself. I got one Bible opened up here, another Bible opened up here. I got a concordance over there. I'm talking, this whole tables are just loaded with books if I'm trying to find something out.
Me too.
Sounds like a good thing to do.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
To the invention of the internet. I can Google. Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
That's just it. I don't really trust the internet.
No.
Well, like sometimes I think to myself, I'm like, I'm looking for it. I know it's in there. I'll try to find it. Okay, I can't find it. So then I'll Google it. Oh yeah, there it is. Now I know what the verse is at.
You got to be careful about that. I learned this the hard way. Like forwardness in the King James Bible, I couldn't figure it out to save my life. So I Googled it and it said bold on there. And I'm like, okay. And then I wound up talking to Josiah here. I'm like,
Yeah, that's definitely not it.
it says forwardness is I can't remember what the verse said, but anyhow, I'm like, so it's telling me I shouldn't be bold, but I got to go. I was like, that's almost sound like a contradiction to itself. He pulls up, what was it, Strong's? Yep, Strong's.
Well,
That's-
boldness is strong.
No,
But I don't know
Strong's, like a Strong's concordance, a Strong's,
Strong's the name of the dude who wrote the concordance.
Oh,
yeah.
And he defined a whole lot of the Greek terms, and it's a very good resource, especially if you are reading King James.
Mhm.
You need that E that right there, that E sword on your phone,
Yeah.
and just watch. Whoa, hold on, we're at here.
Oh, using technology to my advantage.
All I do is switch it to King James Plus, and it gives me the Strong's concordance on every single
On
word,
every word.
on every verse.
I got to download that app.
Yeah,
And the Strong's goes along with the King James. There's
Mhm.
other ones
That's
that
right.
go along with different.
I got a Cruden's concordance. I don't have a Strong's concordance, but
I don't know that one. There's a lot of them out there, and you'll find a great overlap in most of them.
I'll show it to you whenever this Bible study's over with. Anyhow, a wise son heareth his father's instruction, but a scorner heareth not rebuke. A man shall eat good by the fruit of his mouth, but the soul of his transgressors shall eat violence. He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. The soul of a sluggard desireth and hath nothing, but the soul of the diligent shall be made fat. A righteous man hateth lying, but a wicked man is loathsome and cometh to shame. A righteous keepeth him that is upright in the way, but the wickedness overthrown the sinner. You want to take off of it?
There is one who makes himself rich, yet has nothing, and one who makes himself poor, yet has great riches. The ransom of a man's life is his riches, but the poor does not hear rebuke. The light of the righteous rejoices, but the lamp of the wicked will be put out. By pride comes nothing but strife, but with the well-advised is wisdom. With wealth gained by dishonesty, we will be diminished, but he who gathers by labor will increase. Hope deferred makes the heart sick, but when the desire comes, it is a tree of life.
Okay. Let me go.
Okay.
Now I want to say this, KC, yeah.
13.
He that scorns instructions will pay for it, there we go, but he who respects a command is rewarded. The teaching of the wise is a fountain of life, turning a man from the snares of death. Good understanding wins favor, but the way of the unfaithful is hard. Um, yeah. I lost where I was at. Okay, every prudent man acts out of knowledge, but a fool exposes his folly. A wicked messenger falls into trouble, but a trustworthy envoy brings healing. I'm gonna hand it off tonight, see better.
Still,
18, I think.
18. Poverty and shame shall be to him that refuseth instruction, but he that regardeth reproof shall be honored. The desire accomplished is sweet to the soul, but it is abomination to fools to depart from evil. He that walketh with wise men shall be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Evil pursueth sinners, but to the righteous good shall be repaid. A good man leaveth an inheritance to his children, to his children's children, and the wealth of the sinner is laid up for the just. Much food is in the trillage, I'm saying it wrong, trillage of the poor, but there is that is destroyed for want of judgment. He that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him chases him betimes. The righteous eateth to the satisfying of his soul, but the belly of the wicked shall want.
Okay, 23 and 24 in English. Much food is in the fallow ground of the poor, and for lack of justice there is waste. He who spares his rod hates his son, but he who loves him disciplines him promptly. You had two words in there that, yeah, I didn't know. And I'm reading it and I still didn't know.
That actual was chastisement. Chastises.
It was the prompt, it was whatever he had in place of promptly that I'm going, okay, that's a.
The tillage is the word I've never tillage.
And tillage is fallow ground. I mean,
It's different.
Hmm?
I really can't say I turned light off.
Yeah, I don't. The Proverbs go very quickly here and they change subjects matter completely.
I think
each one can be taken separately at this point.
it's a proverb.
Well,
It's not so much a chapter, the chapters are just there to help us find which one we're looking for.
That's right. It's a list of, and I was sitting there thinking, as listening to everybody read that, it'd be a great idea for a restaurant. Your fortune cookies have proverbs in it.
matter of
Proverbs,
fact,
not.
Yeah, real Proverbs.
Yes.
out there at Hastings, Nebraska, when I was working out there, there was one restaurant I'd always go eat at. They had a train track that run around, kids can watch it, and down below it had different sayings out of the Bible, Proverbs and everything. I thought it was real neat.
Well, they've always said that they don't make a book on parenting, but if you ever read through the entire book of Proverbs, I think you can. it'll help
Oh,
you.
yeah, it's discipline,
Yeah,
what it is for the good and the bad.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
What's the old saying, spare the rod, spoil the child?
well, that's just what it said, right?
Yeah. And the older King James, it says that, spare the rod, spoil the child. But not to aggravate your child, make him mad.
Well, just like in Hebrews 11, it talks about you'll be chastised by the Lord. And that is to prove whether or not you are his actual son, or if you are
A fake.
a fake. I can't remember what the actual term for it is. And so, like, take Liam, for example, my boy, you'll see me get on to him if he's acting up.
Yeah.
That's because he's my boy.
Yeah.
And the Lord does the same thing to us. He
Yeah.
wants to correct us when we're wrong.
That's what he's been doing clear through the Bible, Jeremiah and all them. He's been preaching. You're not listening. Well, you're making him mad. Keep it up.
And he's
You're gonna get your butt spanked.
and you're not gonna like it.
No.
Start with verse 1. That's a good place to start.
That is a very good place to start. A wise son heareth his father's instruction, but a scorner heareth not rebuke. What does your version say?
Very close to it, being New King James. A wise son heeds his father's instruction, but a scoffer does not listen to rebuke.
Okay, I have mocker for scoffer. Does not listen to rebuke. The first part of it's essentially word for word.
Mhm.
A wise son heeds his father's advice or instructions. And the point on this is that if we don't listen to our earthly fathers, we probably won't listen to any instructions from teachers, from law enforcement, rules from government, or God.
Yeah,
Father.
Exactly.
And so one just leads into all the others, but basically, if you rebuke your father's advice, then you're probably going to rebuke God's advice because his advice is much like that of a father's.
I'll guarantee it.
I will agree with you that to a point. I absolutely agree with you on that. But to take a kid that doesn't have the best father in the world, now you should always love and honor your father. It doesn't matter what part of life you're in, love and honor your
Yeah.
father. You know, you wouldn't be in this world without him. But let's say he's a drug addict.
And the father doesn't care for the kid and doesn't discipline the kid, so he hates the kid.
Exactly.
According to the Bible.
But absolutely. But that's kind of sometimes then father types don't have the best instruction.
Well, then, this is assuming,
That the father is,
this is
yes.
assuming a righteous instruction, and that we need to make clear at this point, because exactly what you're saying is true. And,
It doesn't say in there, listen to what this idiot says all the time. It
Well-
doesn't say, listen to this idiot all the time.
You're not the best father. When you're a child, you are supposed to obey.
Yeah.
That being said, when you become a man, you're supposed to understand that, okay, he wasn't the best role model. Maybe I don't want to be just like him. And you're responsible for your own actions upon the realization that you are no longer a child.
Exactly.
Well, that, and just like you said, say he doesn't have the ability to go to church, but his mom goes to church. Well, you got your other family.
right, but then sometimes in our society, and it's got even more so now than what it used to be, that neither one goes to church, neither one of them cares, and then sometimes the mother and father haven't seen each other in years, and the child may have never seen his father.
Exactly.
And so you're looking at all the different scenarios here. And what this is basically saying, to me, in one sense, I would emphasize it this way, that in absence of a moral, godly, earthly father, then you're talking about God, the Father.
Mhm.
I can't stand when I hear preachers. I've seen this a few times, and when, like for this example here, that we're talking about fathers with this verse, a wise son heareth his father's instruction, but a scorner heareth not rebuke. And I can't stand when I hear preachers stand up there and say, I'm just sorry if you all had a bad father. And I'm sorry if you had an abusive father, and I'm sorry that you had this. And I'm like, well, that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a righteous father. We're talking about
Yeah.
this. We're not heading to the negative immediately. We're trying to boom. Don't.
No, we're talking about the kid here,
Well,
a good kid and a bad kid.
that's what I'm saying. Well, I'm saying the focus and some of these I don't know if I want to say it, liberal churches, some of their focus gets flipped to the
Yes.
other part. We're looking at one verse because
Yes.
people focus on something. Well, that ain't got much to do with the.
They
text.
spend all their time apologizing rather than studying
That's what I'm
apologetics.
Mhm.
Exactly. Don't apologize for something you don't. if you're not in that situation, just leave it alone and just move on forward.
Exactly.
I've put my foot in my mouth more than one time on my own. I have to sit up and apologize because something that may or may not have happened when you're just speaking to a group of people.
But there's a difference between apologizing for what I did wrong
Yeah. that's
and then
right.
apologizing for the Bible, which
That's
I should be an apologetic, not apologizing for.
And I agree with what Don said here, that, listen to good instruction. If you don't listen to good instruction at the basic level of your father being in charge of your son, you're gonna be a hellion when you get older. You're gonna be
Well, you're gonna find out the hard way.
that's right. Because eventually you're gonna keep getting out of it, you're gonna keep getting out of it, you're gonna keep getting out of it, and then eventually you can't get out of it anymore. You're gonna look back in your life and you're gonna be like, man, I'm 25 and I ain't held a job older than this longer than a week or so, and now you're, yeah.
Well, uncoachable kids, as the saying goes, uncoachable kids become unemployable adults
That's what I'm saying.
because they can't handle a coach hollering at them. They ain't gonna handle their boss hollering at them. And you and me
That's
come from the same
Everybody,
line of
everybody's
guys.
got a boss.
That's right.
Okay, let's look at this, the back part of this verse for just a second and stay on the same line of thinking. But a mocker does not listen to rebuke. And pretty soon, one day, that mocker is going to be a father
Mhm.
or a mother. I mean, in
Either
this
way.
regard, that we're talking about people here. And the mocker is going to be in that position. And what's he going to teach? What's he going to show?
Well, I was kind of raised up on one half of that.
And it takes a while.
And you brought up the word of God. Oh, man. It was negative, negative, negative. But the other half, positive, positive.
Okay, but yeah, and so at least you had a 50-50. You had to assume there's 0-0 and on either side.
My-
But
For my grandparents, this positive, positive.
there's a point in time in all of our lives, and I don't know, I think we all face it at different times when we realize, even as a younger child, that our actions have consequences
Yes,
that we are going to pay for,
yes.
one way or the other. In my case, in Nick's case, my oldest son, broken bones was very much a part of it. You do something stupid, you break a bone, and you're the one that's in the hospital. You're the one that's going to pay for the pain and this of a couple of minutes or for going along with the crowd because they do it and they get up and nothing's happened. You do it and you end up in a world of hurts. And so we're different. But you learn at some age, we come aware that we can't blame others for what happens to us. We have to take a little bit of responsibility, and it's a growing process. So it starts off with a little bit, but the more we learn, the more we have to make decisions for ourselves and not say, well, I had a bad father, so I can go out and rob people.
That's no excuse.
Yeah,
Well,
okay,
that's-
that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
And so I have seen, working in a sheriff's department for 6 years, over about a 10-year period, work for 2 years and off for 2 years and then back and forth. And in that, and you see kids come out of families that are pretty much always in jail.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to belittle anybody, but every now and then you see one come out there and be outstanding.
Yes,
And you see just the opposite. Out of a very good night, you see one or two go the other way.
Mhm.
It happens. And what I would say to parents is you do the best according to what God would have you to do to raise your children in a godly way. And in the Old Testament, Jeremiah and Isaiah, mostly in Jeremiah, says, God says, I raised up children and they rebelled against me. You know anybody that's a better parent than God? So be careful what you say and how you say it,
yeah.
in this regard. If he raised up children, they rebelled against him. And you see that all throughout those books I'm talking about in that area. And the results of that, children grow up to be adults. They make their own decisions.
Mhm.
Okay, I have seen children of highly alcoholic. I'm gonna use father here.
Mhm.
Even though they might not go to church, they don't drink at all. But the vast majority of them will be just
Oh.
like their dad.
Yep.
But every now and then there's that kickback.
There's 90% that will follow their dad and the 10% is the opposite.
And then and they go the opposite direction. Nobody
Yeah.
stays kind of in the middle, is what I'm getting at here.
Well-
Or very rarely. I won't say it never happens, but it's in the middle. It's not too much. You either follow in their footsteps or you reject it completely.
Well, oh, yeah, I'll put myself under a microscope because I'm okay with it. My dad was a real heavy drinker back whenever I was a kid. I'm
I
talking,
must say.
it was bad enough whenever I was little. I thank God he ain't like that now with the grandkids, but whenever I was little, my grandpa would have to come check on us at night because he'd be passed out on the floor. And you know what it's like to be 2 years old. You're shoving your dad around. He won't wake up. It's like,
Never
what's going on
did that.
here? I'm 2 years old. I don't know. I got a 5-year, well, my sister's 5 years older than me. We're two kids basically all on our own at that point.
Yeah.
With a passed out adult. And a part of that, whenever Liam came into my life, I was like, I can still remember that time frame. I am not putting him through the same thing I went through growing up.
Lord,
There you go.
amen.
I love my dad to death. I really do. He's my father. He's my dad.
Yeah, you're supposed to.
Exactly. But that's something I learned as a kid. I will never put Liam through.
The same story here, basically. Me, David. Dad liked Mitch because Mitch followed my dad. I started to follow my dad. Even David did a little bit,
I would have followed my dad too.
and it wasn't good.
I listened to some of David's stories because he's the one I've talked to the most of your brothers over the years. And when, how are y'all still alive?
Grace to God.
Yeah.
Really, some of the stuff we pulled.
Yeah, that wasn't a facetious question.
Well, I'll
Really.
tell you the story on how I became being raised by my grandparents. See, at that time frame, my grandpa was still in the picture. He was still alive. And what had happened was he came out to the farm to check on us, and he found Dad passed out again, and Mom had already left. She moved down to Texas, 13 hours away. Dad was trying to raise us on his own. Passed out on the floor. Where in the world's Doug at? We're talking middle of, probably around this, if I remember right, it was around this time of the year, so it gets cold at night. And he finds me out in the barn playing in the hay because I'm a kid unsupervised.
Mhm.
Oh, you talk about a beating. He drug Dad out of that house, and dang near whooped him half to death, and then drug him back in the house, said, I've had enough. Grabbed me and my sister, took us into town. He told my grandmother, we're not forcing him to raise his kids anymore.
Yeah.
He
I
goes, we're
done the
not.
same thing.
Yeah, he said, we're not. Again, I love him. He's straightened
Well,
up
yeah.
since then, but that was how I began to be raised by my grandparents, because my grandpa drug us in town. He didn't want us to be put underneath that.
Right, right. No
Yeah.
kid should have to go through that.
No.
No, I could show you bullet holes. Of course, they tore the fireplace out where folks got into it. And Dad shot at Mom, missed and hit the fireplace. There's a couple of bullet holes in there. It just the lifestyle that we growed up in.
No.
But I'm not putting, I didn't put my kids through it, and we're not gonna put my grandkids through it. Like I said, I turned 180 degrees.
Mhm. Now, granted, I did take a turn once I became 21, and I did get into drinking. And then it got to the point one night I was sitting there kind of thinking, it's a Wednesday night, I gotta work the next day, I'm half lit. It's like, I'm turning into Dad.
Well, it's easy.
It's easy. It's a
I
easy
started
route to
at
go.
16.
That, I had my first drink at 16,
Oh,
but it didn't really, it kicked off at 17 and 18. I skipped a couple of years and it really hit hard whenever I could legally buy it.
No, I started
Yeah.
at 16. Dad thought it was funny. Hey, go for it.
Well, we all have different stories and
Yeah.
different degrees, and I was more blessed in certain ways and wasn't quite so severe. I never had my dad that drunk, but I have had to take him home from bars and other things and drive him
Oh, I've
home as
done that
as
ever
an
since I've
adult.
had a
So,
driver's license.
you know, that the thing I realized at a point in time was that I wasn't addicted to alcohol, but I would drink, and I realized that I'm heading this way, and I saw what I was going to turn into. And from having worked some at the sheriff's department, I realized all that does is destroy the families.
Absolutely.
And I, you know, the Lord got a hold of me and I poured it down and drank.
Well, there's a reason why.
It was an instant dead stop.
Exactly. Well, see, there's a reason why. Correct me if I'm wrong. The Bible never really says it is wrong to drink a beer, one beer. Never says anything wrong about that, but it says a drunkard or,
Overindulge.
overindulge in it, or a strong drink, raging,
Mhm.
raging drink. And there's a lot of consequences that come to it. I don't know how we got off on drinking, but let me finish this. What I'm getting at is my dad grew up in a Christian home. Him and my Uncle James both became heavy drinkers. Dad went to beer because kind of an oxymoron. He's actually allergic to alcohol. He can drink light beer, but don't ever let him touch whiskey.
Yeah.
Breaks out in hives. My Uncle James, he would drink the hard stuff. He died at 52. Cirrhosis of the liver, drinking the hard stuff all them years. So there's a reason why the Bible kind of warns you of that.
Very destructive.
Very.
Let's get away from the idea of the kids listening to their fathers and bring it to something we can apply to our walk as adults. In verse 20, he who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed. I know we'd like to say, well, we shouldn't have guilt by association, but there is such thing as guilt by association. If you're hanging out with the wrong crowd, you will eventually,
It rubs off on you.
You become who you're around.
you become an accomplice, if nothing else. If
Mhm.
absolutely nothing else, you become an accomplice.
And you
I've
sit
said
in the
it. I've
back
said it
room and
many,
play
many-
cards and spend all the money the family has and lose it and come out drunker than a skunk. And that's who you've been. Then you become that guy that hangs around. That's in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's my dad.
Yep.
You're on the wrong side of dad, Mike. You couldn't hear you start talking.
No, it's all good. Yeah, I was gonna make pretty
Right.
much similar to the same point. Yeah, same point.
No, there's a lot in these, and how do we get there on Proverbs? Because it deals with fathers and sons and family relationships, and that's a lot of it that's in here.
Well,
That's a lot we have to learn.
in the last 2.5 to 4 years, how many times have you heard of someone being in one of these gatherings and they get on the wrong end of some police action or some violence that breaks out, and the family comes out, well, our beloved was just passing through, they weren't even part of it, and they got wrapped up into it accidentally. Well, there comes a point where if you see what's going on is bad, you've got to get out of Dodge, and it is your responsibility to hightail it out of there. If you're sitting there and watching because you're curious, you have no right to complain when it swallows you.
Well, and a lot of people use that phrase, Jesus sat with sinners. Well, no, he went to convert the sinners.
He did not join the sinners at the brothel.
No, he did not.
I don't even see anywhere where Christ went into the bar. He talked to drunks, yes, but I don't see where he went to the bar. He talked to prostitutes. He didn't go to the brothel.
Exactly.
So I put it this way, there's a verse about not casting your pearls before swine. And I may not always be able to judge who and who is not the swine, but I know what lives in a pig pen. And I can recognize pig pen by the smell.
Sight.
or sight, but you don't go, and it goes back to this verse. You don't even have to really be the companion or intend to be the companion. If you put yourself in those situations, you will get yourself in trouble.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
One of the things in college that bothered me, and it still irritates me because of the oxymoron of what we tell our kids as they're growing up. There was a group of partiers that I was acquaintances with. I wouldn't say good friends, but my roommate was friends with them and we knew each other.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they were going to this party. And if they were going to drink, not that they were 21 yet, but they were going to drink. Drinking wasn't all they were going to be doing. Because about half of them were the dedicated potheads on campus. And they wanted me to be the designated driver because they knew I wouldn't drink. And I turned them down, and then worried all night about them killing somebody on the way home because I knew they were going to go party anyway. Until they finally got back in the wee hours. But I turned them down because if I got pulled over by an officer, even though they tell you all throughout high school, if you're going to do this anyway, get a designated driver. My butt's in prison, right? Or not prison, jail.
Jail with them.
Waiting arraignment to sort out the facts in the aftermath, and right beside them.
Yeah.
Because they have their pot paraphernalia on them in the car I'm driving, I'm guilty.
Or if one of them has a pint of whiskey
Ain't mine.
in their pocket, then you got open alcohol, and as the driver,
Yep.
you're responsible for what's in the car. Just
Absolutely. Well, that's just like, back when all me and my rowdy friends used to go out and do things. It's like, we don't allow, that's first rule, don't allow any underage guys to be drinking with us. It don't matter whether I buy him that beer. If I'm over 21, that kid's 19 years old, he gets caught, I'm the other age person. I'm going to jail for someone else.
Yep, I've locked up several people for that.
Victim of circumstance at that point, but you put yourself in that position. You allowed an underage one around you. Anyhow,
Mike, what was you gonna say?
I don't remember.
Her kind of treating you like a redheaded stepchild.
sorry,
No, you're all good. I'll make the same point. What I was gonna say was, even when I speak to some of my military friends, I gotta watch my language. Because it's like, I gotta make a conscious effort not to cuss. Because that was just another vocabulary. And I think a friend of mine, when we actually left your church there on the fourth Sunday, and I told you I had a missed call from him. I don't know if you remember that. I just stepped out and let me call this guy back. I got to answer my phone. This dude was like, "What's up, mother?"
Yep.
Right there. Everybody's listening. And I'm like, dude, I'll call you right now. And he don't mean nothing. It's just how we would talk to each other. You know, it was nothing bad. And I called him right back. And he's like, "Dude, man, what was all that?" And I was like, "Man, I just stepped out of church." And he's like, "I'm so sorry." Don't worry about it, man. It's a term of endearment.
that's
Well,
how
in
we do it in
construction,
But it's just one of the, I have to make a conscious effort, and I fail miserably most of the time.
well,
But
you learned a lot of them words when you got into basic. With the DI, when you was, what was his words?
Well, see,
And it's screaming.
I had to learn to quit doing that because a lot of times you'll get so used to cussing that it just comes out naturally. at that point.
Yeah, it
Me and a buddy of mine, well, he's still a good friend of mine, but we worked on the same job for like 6-7 months. Every morning we didn't wait, we flipped each other off.
Mhm.
That's just our dark sense of humor on job site.
Yep.
Instead of waving, "Hey, how you doing?" It was,
As the member here who grew up with the opposite example of a father, I didn't grow up with that language. I remember the maddest I think Mom ever got at me is when I said something our landlord had just said at the time, not knowing what the word meant. My hide was about to get
Here's one of these
tan.
guys that talk just like that, and that's just the way every.
other word.
I didn't know what it was, but I knew it was wrong. But I got down to college, and here again, that's just the way most people speak anymore.
it's a common thing.
And I'd come home one day and I'm talking around the house with folks and the neighbors, and I literally have to bite my tongue mid-sentence to keep this word from popping right out there. I'm going, when did I talk this way?
Yeah.
Since when? Because I grew up
Yeah.
But
in a
look-
in a clean environment.
Go up the East Coast, Jersey, New York, every
Oh.
other word is the F bomb. That's just the way they talk.
Yeah,
It's the F bomb.
I don't have to go that far.
Kansas
Well,
City,
out there.
Kansas City, but
I was on the council for 4 years. I didn't have to go that far. I
Well,
heard it
He's out of the Navy.
Well,
But
Yeah.
You know who I served with on the council? I mean,
it's a challenge.
It
It's
is.
something I have to make speaking for myself, a conscious effort,
Yes.
to just,
and it slips in
Yeah.
there so easy.
and I don't, which I know I probably should avoid these guys. I don't when they talk to me, because sometimes it's reminiscent over somebody getting killed. So if we're gonna have that conversation, and I'll just let them say what they want to, and I just gotta watch myself.
Yeah.
yeah, I
It
hear you.
gets easier as we get more into the word of God, not
Yeah.
person.
That's
well, working at the sheriff's department, the first 2 years, I learned how to cuss really good. For what I didn't know, I learned.
Right. I did too, at least.
Both sides of the fence,
Yeah.
the deputies and the prisoners. I mean, I learned new ways of applying things. And I also learned to be very sarcastic.
Yeah.
And
How you learned that from your sisters?
well, I learned that from a lot of people, but when you're in a jail, you learn a new level of sarcasm.
Mhm.
And I became very good at coming back with things that would just kind of cut somebody down. And it took quite a bit of time to take a lot of those things. I don't know that you ever get rid of all of it because it's in here.
yeah.
You're branded.
But yes, I learned to control my tongue for the most part. I won't say 100% because the words still go through, but I rarely do they come out. But the sarcasm and some of the other things can be just as hard to get rid of and just every bit as derogatory in its own regard. And so it's a way of learning to say nothing at all. Sometimes just sit back and say, okay, I got to get a hold of this before I stick my foot in my mouth. And but you can take the thoughts and the words and take them.
Well, see,
if
a
you
lot
will.
of it is, like we read in James a few weeks ago at the Methodist church. Well, it's been more than a few weeks ago. It's been a couple months ago. You know, the tongue is a fire.
Yep.
Can't be tamed. And the only thing I can think of, it ain't, if you can't tame your tongue, you gotta have a
Keep your
heart.
mouth closed.
Keep your mouth closed, and it's gotta be a change of heart too.
Yes.
Proverbs is going to tell us at some point. I'm getting ahead or behind. I don't know.
Well, in this Bible study, you can jump ahead if you want.
But anyhow,
Right.
just the idea that, out of the abundance of the heart, mouth speaks. I know that's New Testament too, but that's still controlling the tongue is.
Well, just so, just a couple verbs back,
Mhm.
the mouth. That reminded me, somebody mouthing off and this guy's aggravating him and he's still mouthing. Then you got a brawler in there that punched him
Well,
because he didn't know when to shut up.
Wine is a mocker and beer is a brawler, and that's true for the
Mhm.
most part.
oh,
And
yeah.
whiskey's a fighter.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah, I've heard the term way too many times. I'm a mean drunk.
Can't stand people like that,
I can't stand drunk, period.
right?
They always said if you want to quit drinking, become a bartender.
Mhm.
I've always heard the term, if you want to quit drinking, become a bartender. At least that's what my mother told me.
Yeah, let the Lord get a hold of it and you pour it down the drain.
Oh, I agree. I agree. I'm trying to think.
That's your first thought.
I know.
Just like you're saying, can't help yourself. Just comes out.
You guys smell the smoke yet?
Yeah.
That's what lit the grass fire the other day.
Don't tell nobody. Someone has to pay the bill. I don't want to be the one to do that.
The light of, well, let's come in the right chapter first. The light of the righteous rejoiceth, but the lamp of the wicked shall be put out. It's one of those verses that I always think, and we were talking, what time is it? It's all right if we get kicked off the internet now. We were talking before you guys got here. California passed a law, or they're trying to pass a law today that popped on my boss's phone there, that they can abort a baby 22 days after it's born.
Why
Yeah.
stop there?
Well, New York, same way.
That's what I'm saying. So
And I think
Someone needs to
Colorado,
go abort Newsom.
so I look at the light of the righteous will
So
prevail.
glad I wasn't taking a drink.
well, if they're allowed to do that, then how about the murderer that goes down the street and shoots an adult?
That's what I was saying. I
Yeah,
don't actually, I shouldn't have
Is
said
it
it the way I
open
did.
season now?
I shouldn't have said it the way I did, Lord
It's
forgive
all
me,
about the
but
terms.
the point I was trying to make was, why does it stop there? At what point does it stop?
It don't.
It don't.
Well, because now we have, on the other end, there's this right to end your life because of whatever. And almost any excuse will do. If you get the right doctor and you live in the right state, you can pretty much end your life with a lethal injection.
Looks
Well,
like they did it up in Michigan, Dr.
Oregon,
Hill.
he's dead now.
Yes,
Yeah. But in
And
Oregon,
you know
they
where
have,
he's
they have
at.
that euthanasia.
Yeah.
yeah.
Go right in there and just say, I'm done. I don't like the fact that you only have to be 18. You have to have a hospice appropriate disease, but yeah, you can just say, I'm done.
Oh, heck, you don't even have to have that in Germany. If you're over in Germany, you can be my age, perfectly healthy, and just say, I'm done with life. And they'll put you down if you ask for it.
Really?
Yeah, they got what they call suicide doctors over there.
Okay,
I don't know how they're a doctor, but
but probably 25, no, it'd be longer than that. Over 30 years ago, I was reading an article about a place in the Netherlands and the way they did their drugs, and they don't have a drug problem. They have a part where it's pretty much
You do whatever you want.
given, and they will give you, issue out new clean needles and stuff, but most of them's already got diseases from the needles stuff, but
Mhm.
it doesn't matter. And they go through daily and just pick up the corpses, the
Yeah.
dead bodies.
Yep.
Wow, I read that and my mouth dropped open. I'm thinking, what in humanity's name are we doing? How are we getting to this place? And then you look at it and now here it is in our country and the shedding of innocent blood. Let's go back and look that up in the Old Testament, see how many times God blames Israel for the shedding of innocent blood. Not trying to protect your neighbor. I would say that's a good definition of hating your neighbor
Yeah.
instead of loving your neighbor as yourself. When you assist him and you allow him to kill himself because he wants to, knowing he's got two kids, one over here and one over there, or what, you get the picture. It's
Absolutely.
nobody gains from this. This is a loss for everybody. Everybody loses. And yet the world can't see that everybody loses. Not only the person that lost his life, but everybody connected. And no one's an island. No man's really of and on his own. Maybe at a certain point they get there, but
Of and on his own. Well,
most have a mother and a father somewhere.
Yes.
yes.
Grandma or grandpa.
I will agree with you on that.
Nieces, nephews,
And
cousins.
there's a lot of people that feel isolated. They feel like they're on their own. Heck, look at the suicide rate, especially in men. I don't know if you guys noticed that. That isolated rate, they might have other family members, but the suicide rate in this country is sky high. It's the highest it's been in 30 years. I might be wrong, but
No, I don't believe you are.
Look at verse 12 here. The NIV rendering, I'm sure it's going to be different. I haven't looked across the page so much to get it. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. What's wrong with these people that commit? They have no hope.
exactly.
They've lost their hope. Hope deferred makes the heart sick. The heart's sick enough. The heart is deceitful above all things. Anything is possible. I could give you an example of a case that's going around now where in the state of New York, where they're slack on crime, a guy got arrested for beating his wife. He spent a few hours in the jail getting throughout. They let him out.
He shot his wife.
He rams his wife's car with whatever he was driving. I don't know what it was. Stops the car with his children in the car from 6 months to, I think, 9 years old.
Something like that.
And then in front of the kids, he comes up with a gun and executes. Yep, execution style murder. Because some judge and some state's attorney and some governor and the laws of the state allow such horrible things to go on. Should never have happened because his butt should have still been in the pokey. And I've been there and I've locked up many guys under this circumstance.
All I gotta say is in your scenario, I agree with everything you said, except it was probably the gun's fault.
Well, nowadays you're right. In
Yeah.
the old days, it wasn't the gun's fault.
It's the spoon's fault, I'm fat.
They'll be glad I'm not the
There, I-
president of the
Spoon's
United
real support
States.
For me.
Are you
Spoon,
telling me
fork,
I
knife,
didn't call my
chopsticks,
hair
I don't
property?
discriminate.
That's why but I didn't call my hair property? That's why I'm bald?
Uh-huh. Combs fault.
Combs fault.
If I was the president of the United States,
We'd be in
if,
trouble.
Yes, we
you
would.
ain't kidding. That man that shot his wife, he wouldn't been turned out of jail early. We would be pulling Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. Chain gang, buddy. Guess what? You're going to work in the morning.
I'll tell you.
Yes.
The president doesn't have that authority.
Oh, I'd make that into law.
Doesn't have that
At least
authority,
they got states'
not
rights.
legally. That's a
Well,
state
no.
issue.
But he's right, in the states that passed these laws, and it was that easy for that man to get off, and they let him go, no bail, and right back in.
I'll tell you. Well, go ahead.
As president, the law you need to be passing is one that says, if the governor or the judge lets that guy go, they are guilty.
Yep.
I think about the attorney and the judge and all them who let that dude go. They gotta sleep tonight.
But what
They
would
got a
happen?
clean conscience.
We got a couple guys that's been in the military here, I think. I haven't. But if you're in the military and you capture somebody and you're supposed to be guarding them and you're the guard, you're the guy with the gun and the authority, right?
Mhm.
And you deliberately let them go
Oh, you're done.
and they kill somebody, what happens?
You're getting shot.
Yeah, farm squad.
Okay. I guess I see things no differently.
I-
Yeah,
I-
the intentional dereliction of duty, dereliction of job. If I had that.
If the prisoner depending. And Mike knows where I'm coming from. I take you towards the encampment. Fell down. Somehow the gun went off.
No. When I was working at the
Oh,
sheriff's
what?
department,
Yeah,
and we did have guys that escaped and they got out and they did some really horrible things. They didn't escape on me, but they escaped at the time that I worked there. But it wasn't upon me, but they weren't let go. They used force to get out of the little Podot County jail. But if I had let those guys go on my own authority, let's say I thought, well, this guy's been kind of pushed around, I'll go fill out the paperwork and fill out the card, then I'll just turn him loose on my own authority. And he went out and do that. You know what they'd do to me?
oh,
Put you in a cell with them.
that's right.
And should have been.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's one thing about being
Well,
senseless and left behind.
We had a case like that woman escaped with that prison.
Yeah.
Where was that at?
I wanna say Texas. Yeah.
Texas, yeah.
She let the guy escape and they found her murder, suicide, or double suicide or something.
Mhm.
Yeah, Texas or Florida. I was
She
thinking
died.
one of them.
Too many articles that begin with Florida, man.
Okay, wait, Joe and I were
If you live
talking,
down that peninsula, you'd lose your mind too, buddy.
in between my 2 years outs at the sheriff's department, just before I came back in, this case had just been settled. A guy came in drunk, realized he was about to pass out and told his wife, remind me when I get up, you got a beating coming. he did it a lot of times. Tried to hide most of it, but couldn't hide all. And she had had all she could take. She had no hope of going anywhere. When he passed out, she went and got his little snub nose 6-shot 38, put the pillow over his head, 6 shots. He never woke up.
Yep.
First degree murder.
Uh,
Fortunately, they took everything into consideration and she got charged for, I want to think it was something like shooting a gun in the city limits. And time served, about 2 weeks in the county jail.
Yeah.
And so every now and then justice
Does
does
happen.
work, but not always. And today I wouldn't want to, take my chances on any of that. But the guy was high enough in different standings. Nobody believed that he was doing that to her. And then her close friends said, oh yeah, when it got to trial.
I'll tell you this much, I try to be turning the other cheek. But if I ever, no matter if it's in a gas station or private home or public, if I ever see a man lay his hand on a small child, I'm not talking just spanking their butt. I'm talking
No
physically,
difference,
Yeah,
physically
Beating.
beating a child or physically beating a woman.
I'm with
It's,
you.
it's gonna be an eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth at that point.
One of us is going to the hospital. I
Yeah.
don't think it'll be me. That's why I carry a ball bat. First place is the kneecap.
Well,
Once I get you down, you're gonna know I beat you.
I
Real
remember
simple.
that.
Oh, I want to hear him cry.
Shoot him in the knee.
Ball bat. Won't bust that kneecap.
Jimmy ain't so young no more.
No, but I can still swing a bat. It don't take but one hit, you're going down.
Don, you keep them canes right there.
Yes, but